Right, so good afternoon, EV cafeers. So today marks a momentous day for anyone involved with the wonderful world of electric vehicles, as it's EV Cafe Day. And it's also World EV Day. Sorry, Ade. But we as the EV Cafe team and all of its members are extremely delighted to be partners of this, what Ade calls a global movement towards sustainable transport. So a big thanks to Ade Thomas at Green.TV, the brains behind it all, and for making this all happen. So a round of applause. Just me, or was everyone you?
Oh, I'm in.
I have to say, I'm loving the fact that he's got a halo. There's just a
I
little
know.
halo. There it is. There it is. It's slipped a bit, but he's got it.
So last week saw our first EV Cafe, where all the familiar faces on the screen got together and ran the session from Milton Keynes Experience Centre. So for those of you that tuned in, I hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed doing this, especially being together for the first time. We will definitely work on a physical event in the near future where we can all meet, meet all of you when COVID-19 allows, of course. As for this session, the 15th episode, we are back to what you know, a jam-packed agenda with some really, really special guests, all telling us how they are fighting the good fight towards zero-emission future. And crucially, they are also here to answer all your questions and talk to you. So we are calling this session the Ideas Infrastructure. We'll be joined by some industry leaders from the World EV Day founding partners. But first, and to begin with, we'll speak to the person behind the movement, the amazing Ade Thomas, who will closely be followed by Vanarama's top man, Alderson. Then approximately 12:45, we'll hear from the king himself, well, the king of the AA. And no, it's not Dean Hedger, it's Mr. Edmund King. After that, slight change on guest speaker. Instead of Phil Jones? Sorry, it's Matt Waters from LeasePlan, who'll be telling us why they are partners of the World EV Day and how they are supporting this movement. And last, but by no means least, we will hear from the co-founder of ZapMap, Melanie Shufflebotham. And this will be her second appearance at the EV Cafe, and she has some pretty awesome announcements to make. So for those of you that have never tuned in before, and this is your first time, and just really to reiterate this, it is very much about you lot as the participants than it is about us as the panelists or special guests. We would love to hear from you, so if you could share who you are and where you're from using the chat box, then we would really appreciate it. And feel free to chat amongst yourselves or to the panel using the chat box. If you, however, find it distracting, especially during some of the talks or presentations, then feel free to close or ignore it. If you have a question for the panel, then please click the Q&A tab and we'll endeavour to answer your question as soon as we can, either in the chat box, live, or in what we call the mailroom, hosted by Matthew Kiziak. If you want to talk to us, because we are all human beings, then please raise your virtual hand. There should be a button on the screen, and we'll take you off mute so you can maybe cover something we have missed, challenge us, or simply just to say hello to us. Heckling is always allowed. As for the panel and special guests joining us today, a gentle reminder to raise your hand on camera like so if you want to talk. This is just to avoid crossing over each other, a bit like being back at school. Some kids have been back at school this week. So it's worth noting that John Curtis is here and he has his big clock and he'll be keeping an eye on the time of the presenters. So please try and stick to your 5 minutes and don't give him the satisfaction of him using his comedy whistle. So who are the rest of the cafe crew? Hopefully you know who I am by now. So just in case you don't, I'm the head barista for today. And my name is Jonny Berry, otherwise known as Volty McVolt Face. Thanks to James for that suggestion on the last episode. I actually work in my day job is working in the fleet sales department for Renault UK, supporting EV sales in any way that I can. And I'm always eager to engage with fleets, leasing companies, dealer network, public sector, you name it. And this is just to support in any way I can for EV adoption, which is quite relevant to the World EV Day. And I'm also joined by an awesome bunch every other week now who make it happen, and otherwise known as the E-Vengers. So if I could ask you all to please introduce yourself and of course your E-Venger name. Who would like to go first? Sarah, would you like to go first?
Yes, but I can't remember my E-Venture name.
I can.
What is it?
Electra.
Hi, Electra. We're here, it's World EV Day. I'm so excited. We've missed you so much since the last fortnight, and what a lineup we have for you today. So those who don't know me, I'm Sarah Sloman. I work in energy and infrastructure, always have. I'm here to serve. I'm here to fly the flag for all things zero emission, and I really want to galvanise as much collaboration as possible and encourage openness and honesty today. This is not only live on air in our presentations and our Q&A, but the chat box. This is about sharing your experience, offering to educate, learn from each other, and just progress in a really fun, informal way that this cafe does. So episode 15 should be all about the World EV Day pledges. And I'm really glad you reminded me of my EV venture name. EV Venture, Electra, just call me Electra. There's 150 odd people on so far, so let's just see what we can get out of the next 2 hours.
Thanks, Sarah. Mr. Van Geek himself, Paul.
Well, I think it was Captain VanTastic that we got stuck with. So Captain VanTastic here with a wonderful van in the background, which we will talk about later, no doubt. I'm really excited because there is some great vans coming on the market already that are making the transition to electric motoring within the commercial vehicle world truly possible. And we are here to support that. I'm here to champion that, to talk about those vehicles, and also to ensure that vans are first and foremost in everybody's mind in the transition to zero emission. That's me.
Excellent. John, you're next.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I am John Curtis, ex-head of sustainable transport for the Scottish Government. I love a bit of charging infrastructure. So give me a 50 kilowatt or 100 kilowatt rapid. I'm a happy man. Motoring journalist. I'm also Go Ultra Low ambassador. And I'm a happy man. And I'll tell you why. Because I started my journey in EVs 10 years ago. And I never thought I'd live to see the day when we celebrate electric vehicles. We are. That's what we do. They're our lives. And I love it. Thanks for coming along. And I hope you enjoy today.
What's your Avenger name, John?
My Avenger name is X-Ray Specsy.
Oh, I like it.
And if anyone's seen John's video on LinkedIn, he's
He needs to be.
JC. Can you do that rap again, John?
Yeah, I'm in the house. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, we're going to go down today on the EV Cafe. This is what it's all about. It's about checking them ions and filling them up and using the sunshine to take you where you want to go. Boom!
Wow, that accent changed.
Nice bit of energy from you there, John.
Not exactly rhymes, but there we go. What's his name's in the Wolverine and all that lot? He can be an Avenger, can't he?
Can I just say that poetry doesn't have to rhyme?
Magneto.
Yeah.
Magneto.
And then, so we've also got Mr. Sam Clarke.
Yes, hello everybody. Pleasure to be here once again. I'm going to change my background for the purpose of Ade because it's awesome. Really delighted to be here again, especially on World EV Day, although I look a little bit more like I've got a halo around my head than actually. There we go. I can't remember what my Avenger name was. What was it?
Hybrid lover.
Hybrid lover.
Self-charge.
For so many reasons.
Self-charging Superman.
That's what it is now. That's what it is now.
Thanks, Sam.
I don't know what it was. If anyone can remember what it was, then please put it on the chat because I can't remember.
I'll check.
And then we have. Sorry, have you finished, Sam? Sorry.
I haven't even started yet.
Sorry.
Sam, that was really good.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I'm Sam. Hi. Thank you for having me again, Johnny. I'm the Chief Vehicle Officer for GridServe. I also love infrastructure, like my friend here, Mr. Curtis. I'm delighted to have Ade and the World EV Day here today. It's brilliant. GridServe is a founding member of it, so we're very proud to be so. I'm also delighted to have Ed on here because he's been driving EVs longer than I have, and there's not many people I can say who've done that. And of course, Mel from ZapMap, it's great to hear about what you're up to as well. So thank you for having me. Delighted to be here yet again.
Self-charging Superfan.
We have two or three vendors on the call today. We will see Matthew, the Northern version B, as in job role. He will be coming live from the mailroom to ask those all-important questions on your behalf to the panelists and special guests. Matthew, do you want to say hello to the lovely guests?
Hello, lovely guests. I'm back in my mailroom, Johnny. I've even put my mailroom background back on.
Oh,
That bloke, this bloke over here is, sorry, over there, still done nothing. He's not moved.
lazy.
Yeah, as Johnny said, if you've got any questions, please put them in the Q&A box and we'll get through them as quickly as we can for you at various times throughout the day. Thanks, Neil.
Thanks, Matt. And last but not least is Scott Eady, who will be our chat box master for today. And I'm sure he's going to come and say hello on the chat box. Mind you, is going really busy at the moment. I can see over 100 messages. So that's enough from us. Bang on the time we wanted to be at 12:10. So without further ado, let's kick things off. And first of all, let's just hear from the main man, Ade Thomas. I will start with the first question. Ade, what was the inspiration behind the World EV Day? And would you like to make an intro to yourself as well? Sorry, Ade.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks very much indeed. And very, very glad to join you on the EV Cafe for the first time. And thanks for your warm words about World EV Day. In answer to your question, Johnny, I suppose, to be honest, it was COVID-19, the spectre that hangs over all of us this year. Our big project up to this year was the EV Summit, which was due to happen in a physical form at Oxford University's Saïd Business School in June. And obviously the only game in town this year is digital communications. So I went back to my roots really of digital communications, thinking how can we create a digital campaign to really celebrate e-mobility, and I felt that celebration would be a key thing as well. So really that answer is a digital celebration of e-mobility in this year seemed like a good idea in a year where perhaps celebration hasn't been at the top of our list of things to do. And I'm absolutely delighted to be here with you today, and to be here with you with pretty much all of you being founding partners of World EV Day. So LeasePlan, EV Cafe, the AA, GridServe, I'm delighted, and ZapMap, of course, ZapMap, that you're all founding partners. And it really is it's built through partnership. You hear that a lot, but World EV Day is inherently and definitively a partnership project. Its success is built on a kind of devolved mechanism whereby the partners themselves share their stories, their updates, their analysis, their research, their material initiatives. In the case of the UK government, the government today has announced £21 million worth of further EV investment specifically to be announced on World EV Day. So there are some real material changes that are happening as a result of World EV Day, which I'm unbelievably happy about.
Thank you very much, Ade. Oh, can you see my background now there? So if you have any questions for Ade, then feel free to stick them in the Q&A tab. And then, yeah, we can answer them for you. Any questions from the panelists to Ade whilst we've got them online for the first 20 minutes of the show? Sarah.
Hi, Sarah. How are you? Happy World EV Day to you.
Thank you. I am having a very happy World EV Day. I'd rather this than Christmas, to be honest. That drives me nuts. I just wondered, obviously the numbers speak for themselves when you look at the World EV space on LinkedIn, but do you see this being the future for next year as well, or are you going to try and working towards some more physical presence for next summit?
So this year was defined by being a digital celebration of e-mobility. Yeah. Let's hope that the wheels turn such that next year there could be some real world physical activity. I mean, there is some this year. For example, DS have a special EV experience day in their showrooms, but I mean, I would very, very much hope that we could meet in some physical form, space, and further celebrate e-mobility. I mean, what we definitely have done, I think, with this year's World EV Day is begin an institution in the calendar year. So I'm utterly confident that this will happen again next year. And I think further to that, we've gone through three phases with World EV Day, where initially it was a kind of nice marketing communications idea, and then it became a campaign, which was great. And then I think over the last maybe even just a few weeks or a month, it's become a proper movement. I feel like we have a global movement of organizations who've really embraced the idea of the day to deliver change.
Amazing.
John, is that you with your hand up there? Oh, Paul, over to you.
John was first. I'm just making sure I'm in the queue.
And I forgot Vanarama, the founding partner, Paul. Sorry, I'm not very good at lists. Thank you, Paul, at Vanarama, for also coming on board as a founding partner.
Do you know what? I'll tell you what I'll do. Seeing as Paul is a founding member of the World EV Day with Vanarama. Let's give him the question. Paul, go for it.
Oh, how humble you are. We all know it's an act, but how humble you are. So at the beginning of this year, and little did I know how important it would be, but at the beginning of this year, I stood on a beach and declared my word of the year being collaboration.
Yes.
And I really feel that this is a great example. What has inspired you about the collaboration, and how do you think we can build on the collaboration, you know, with all the partners involved, to really get the message out there?
So, I mean, I think, you know, by its very nature, World EV Day was always a devolved activity whereby we would devolve the activity down to the partners, and the partners would embrace that and run with their own initiatives, which you've done brilliantly at Vanarama. So, you know, what we've done is create a brand, an identity, a set of channels, what we call an amplification network, whereby partners are sharing each other's content under a kind of banner that is World EV Day, which is a kind of safe space for everyone. So, you know, Vanarama, obviously you need to sell and lease your vehicles, but, you know, under the World EV Day banner, hopefully other, perhaps, you know, even competitors might, you know, be interested in sharing your activity and your story. So, you know, it's that amplification network and the devolved activity of the partners themselves that I find quite inspiring.
Brilliant, thanks. John, go.
I was just going to ask you, Aidan, it's a question which one of our viewers has put in. It's Ashvin Suri who's asked about representation at a global scale. Can you give us some sense of how other countries in the world are supporting World EV Day?
Yeah.
Ashvin particularly talks about India and Tata and Steel and, you know, massive organisations.
Yeah, so I mean, the word, you know, the clue is in the name. Thankfully, you know, it's become World EV Day, and it truly is. So across Australia, there are campaigns going on. In India, Tata Motors and Mahindra Electric Mobility are involved. In Ireland, there's a guy driving right around the circumference of the country on World EV Day in his EV, obviously, to raise funds for charity. In the United States, there, you know, on our side, we're hosting a couple of EV Summit panel discussions. Here in the UK government has announced initiatives. You know, it has become a powerful global movement, which, you know, is obviously extremely fantastic.
Ade, give me an insight. How does that make you as a man feel? How do you feel when you see this actually happen?
I'm interested in material change that generates sustainability. Some of you may know that I'm not naturally a car person. I'm not a native car industry person. I am a native sustainability person. I'm interested in e-mobility as a means to an end, as a tool to do a job, to deliver decarbonisation. So I'll slightly defer my own personal justification to one whereby I'm not interested in the here and now. I'm interested in the future for our children. Genuinely, so I feel like climate change is by far and away the biggest issue that humanity has ever faced. The reason I think e-mobility is such an incredibly exciting area is because it is a powerful vector for decarbonisation of an entire sector at speed and in a way which engages a wide audience. In the sustainability sector, which is the wider sector where I apply my trade, it's not easy to communicate issues that are visually compelling to people, but, you know, electric cars, vehicles, you know, people love cars, right? They love pictures of cars, and those are great tools for me in my job as a visual communicator to deploy genuine decarbonisation at pace.
Well, we are very grateful to you as a man, because it takes individuals to stand up and say, do you know what, I'm going to do something about this, so thank you.
I will pass this message on to my wife, who's the other main person in my life that I need to please. Thank you very much for those warm words. Going straight on to my wife.
I'm going to ask if Matthew Kiziak could come online. I noticed there's a couple of questions in the chat box as well as a Q&A tab. So if you're there, Matt, if you can come live from the mailroom, that'd be appreciated.
Hello, I'm here. Oh, live from the mailroom. Back in here. Ed, I think just to sort of, as everyone else has said, you know, thank you so much for the work you've put in.
Thank you.
What was it that made you start all this? What was the catalyst for you?
So I mean, I started in content marketing 8 or so years ago, with working with people like Renault and the Low Carbon Vehicle Partnership. I mean, it was that sense that the automotive sector through e-mobility could deliver a visually compelling narrative to rapidly decarbonize an entire industrial sector. You know, I could see that unfolding. Previously, I'd worked with people like Apple, and I could see how technology, the rapid deployment of technology, could quickly transform an entire sector. I worked for Apple and bought an iPhone on the very, very first day that the iPhone came into the market. I could see how that technology transition could happen so rapidly and in a way with e-mobility that delivers decarbonisation. And I personally feel that I've always been much more optimistic about the rapidity of the shift to electrification. And I think that, you know, within the next 1 to 3 years tops, we will see the mass market take-up of EVs. I think we can all be extremely buoyant and optimistic and confident in that shift unfolding. I think this is the iPhone moment now, and perhaps in a very small way, the World EV Day will be a tool in this what I call ideas infrastructure to help shift and propel that engagement and that understanding towards e-mobility. Sarah, over to you.
I saw a statistic today. I hope I get this right. Apparently, so far in 2020, we've sold more EVs than the whole of 2019 combined. Is that right? Did I see that? Yeah, I was asleep, bleary-eyed, LinkedIn as usual. But I thought, with events like yours from last year at the EV Summit, where you actually get to touch, feel, smell, look at beautiful cars and bikes and e-bikes and trikes and everything that I love about e-mobility, without that, with COVID now limiting that, are we worried there's going to be a slowdown, or do you just think that generally everyone really wants to drive EV and that's it, we've already tipped it, it's going to happen of its own accord? What do you think? Do we need to touch these things, or can we just shout about it?
I think, you know, I think the physicality of actually getting in a vehicle is key. But this year, unfortunately, the only game in town is digital, right? So I'm just using the tools I have at our disposal this year. I mean, but in answer to your question, psychologists tell us that you need a 14-day experience to transition to something new. Once you've done something for 14 days, you do the new thing and you forget the old thing. So yeah, in answer to your question, you know, technically we need to get people driving an EV for 14 days, and that's not going to happen with World EV Day this year as a digital campaign, but let's hold that thought.
Well, it's certainly not impossible. I know when we were working on OLEV, I devised a project with Lloyd Allen and our amazing group in the west of England to allow demonstrator vehicles. So we were allowing people to borrow a car club vehicle, so a well-known car club would lend a vehicle for 2 weeks to anybody who wished to take it home and see if that was feasible even without on-street charging. And those results were really impressive, but it fell down on the price every time. So they said, we love it, it was easier than we thought, blah, 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 but we just can't afford one right now. And that was such a shame.
Yeah. I mean, on that piece, I mean, what we can all do in all of our work is reframe the narrative from cost to savings. I think, you know, we all talk about the cost of ownership and the cost of an EV, and consumers, you know, obviously they pick up on that, but we should talk about, you know, total cost of savings, not total cost of ownership. You know, we should talk about, you know, how, you know, leasing or micro leasing through someone like EV Easy and onto, as they are now known, who work obviously very closely with you guys at Renault, you know, how that's a really frictionless solution and pretty low cost as well.
Yeah,
so
that monthly cost. Yeah, bring it back to, because most people don't understand how much I know for a fact that my family diesel was costing me 450 quid a month, and I didn't even like it. And then what I've got now is costing me exactly the same, even with the savings. So the high ticket price has kind of mashed up the numbers, but I'm break even, so therefore I'm happy. Like, how is this message not getting out?
Let's talk about saving money and saving the planet. Shout a bit more loudly about that.
Let's talk about cost, baby.
Brilliant, Sarah. There are a couple of questions here in the mailbox so far. The first one is a question around EVs being a challenge for people with sight loss. What are the plans for improvements or increasing white noise on QVS and commercial vehicles? How have others overcome the introduction of EV vehicles and the impact on vulnerable people? As Renault, I can happily say that since we originally launched our electric vehicles, we've actually been working with the Guide Dogs for the Blind, because we got that question right from them at the start, saying, how can our users hear your vehicles? So all of our vehicles have had a noise on them since 2012, and it actually became law this was it this year, Jonny, that all new electric vehicles must have some form of noise emitter. Yeah. So I think that one's really quite covered off.
If I could step in there, you'll be pleased to hear, my Renault friends, you'll be pleased to hear that I have a Renault Zoe, and I love the gentle electronic purr of the Zoe as it floats down the street.
Exactly. So the next questions.
Hang on.
That we've got.
Sorry. To say something.
I've got a bit of a curveball thought on that. Is that I think the noise is really important and really good, but when we get a higher uptake of EVs on the road and there's a lot of people with the same noise, is that going to be a problem?
It's all about, I mean, my opinion is it's always been about electric vehicles being pretty much the same as a bike. And there are transport concerns that people have when you're visually impaired, that stepping out from a pavement when there's a cyclist going by is absolutely the same as when an electric vehicle goes by. The risk is there to be managed, and we manage it as best we can, but inevitably pedestrians get hit by cyclists, cyclists get hit by cars, cars get hit by trucks, and you ain't going to change it with a little hum.
And we're all going to be hit by climate change. That's the bigger.
Nice.
Listen, guys, I've got this World EV Day thing hanging over me it's looming quite large, and I as much as I'd love to carry on the conversation, I have another thing to move on to. So, Jonny, I'm very, very grateful to you for inviting me along today, and Sam, Sarah, John, Paul, Matt, everybody else. Thank you very much indeed for joining. I was
just going to say, add to that, Ade, there's been some great comments in the chat box. A lot of people agreeing with you, calling you an inspiration. Also, people announcing themselves from all over the world. The Global EV Day is truly global. We have South Africa on the call, North America, Canada. But yeah, again, it's now time. John, where's your big clock, mate? But
fear not, my friend.
It's now time to go over to the boys at Vanarama and say goodbye to Ade. It's been wonderful to have you on. Thanks for everything you've done.
Thank you.
Enjoy your day.
Thanks so much. Have a great World EV Day. Thanks, everybody.
You too, mate.
Thanks,
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Hello, Andy and Paul.
Hello. Are we
Andy, welcome to the EV Cafe. Sorry?
I can't. No, we've got to wait for 5 minutes, haven't we? We can't.
No. We're on. This is time. It is time.
Good. Excellent. So let me introduce my boss and the CEO and founder of Vanarama, Andy Alderson, and I'm going to sort of duck out of the way so that we can focus on him, and then we'll put a small presentation on. Yes, thanks, Mr. Curtis.
Right, thank you. I'm going to stand if that's okay, because I'm going to unashamedly get off branding. Camera's following me. So yeah, thank you for having me on EV Cafe, particularly pleased to be on World EV Day. So I'm keen to get involved for two reasons. We're the UK's largest car and van leasing broker. We have 52,000 vehicles on the road with our customers. And if we haven't got a plan for electric vehicles in the medium to long term, we won't have a business. But more importantly, leasing can play a real part in this transition to electric vehicles. So John mentioned mobile phones. When we speak to our customers, whether that's in focus groups or surveys, when they talk about electric vehicles and they talk about leasing, they reference things like mobile phones. So as technology changes, they'll change their vehicle every 2, 3, or 4 years. As ranges extend, as spec improves. So we think leasing can play a big part in that transition. So yeah, really pleased to be here today. And from our perspective, there's a few things we've got to do to get ourselves ready for the transition to electric and our customers. So in terms of insight from our customers, we know our customers are thinking about electric. They have to. They've seen the news. They know what the government are planning. But there's kind of a lack of knowledge. So on one hand, 85% of our customers would consider an electric vehicle, but 90% of customers don't know enough about electric vehicles to make the change. So we've got to try and help them with that. We're just having a little bit of a technological challenge at the minute. We did test the tech.
We did.
But we've lost the press for some reason.
I can't stop sharing. How do I
stop sharing?
Yeah.
That's just a comment on your way of life, Paul.
Never stop sharing, guys.
Yeah. You stop the clock, whatever you're doing.
Nah, you're done, Paul. Get off.
Get off.
Job done. Get off, mate.
We cannot get this to do. Why now?
I'll tell you, I'll sit so I can see it. Why don't I do that?
Yeah, but what can you guys see?
We can see your head at your sort of poster, the Vanarama World EV Day with your.
Oh, you can see that?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you see the press?
Right, there we go. Good.
Okay.
So you can see that, and now you can see this?
It's working! Oh, tech hasn't failed us yet, guys.
Yeah, 83-85% of customers would consider an EV next time. 90% don't know enough about to make the change right now. They're aware of what the government are trying to do. We've got one of our core values is if it's right for the customers, it's right for us, and that's about always putting the customer first. So we've got to try and do what we can to help our customers make the transition. In terms of what we've got to do a lot of education. So we're spending a lot of time, putting a lot of effort and a lot of resource behind producing things like video reviews. You've seen Paul doing them on LinkedIn. We've got an in-house video team. We've got a few videographers. We've got content writers. Make sure that we've got the content for our customers, but also the content for our internal team. We're trying to do things to make it easier for customers to adopt what they've got to do to run an electric vehicle. So we've done things like launch a free electric home charger with every electric vehicle that's leased. We're also doing things in terms of practicalities. Ade mentioned 14-day test drives. We've just invested about £75,000 in 3 electric vans, so we can give our customers the vans for 7 days to trial them. What we found through talking to our customers, typically they're not your multi-drop drivers. They're doing 12,000 miles per annum or less. They pick up some supplies, they go to a customer's address, they pick up some supplies and go to a customer's address. So actually the kind of range anxiety that they have is probably not based on any knowledge. So we're going to give them the vehicles for 7 days and let them trial that and see what it works like in real life. So that's something we've launched this week. And then in terms of what we want to do in the future, we've got a couple of partnerships that are about to go live. We've got more in the pipeline that'll help us and help our customers kind of accelerate the adoption. We've got educational programs, as I've talked about internally and externally. Our aim is that we know our fleet CO2s. We're going to reduce that. My next company car is going to be electric. We're looking at that now. And we've just got a big plan to support our customers reduce their carbon footprint. So so there's lots going on. It will be iterative because what's happening, what we've seen during lockdown is, in terms of people's willingness to adopt new technology, I think although there's a lot of people saying the infrastructure won't be there, I think they're underestimating it. I think they're underestimating the pace of change, and we've got to be ready to adopt it. So lots of work going on. I'm interested to hear what the rest of the panel have got to say.
Thank you very much, Sarah, Andy.
Well done, Andy.
And did we get it under 5 minutes? That's the question.
Oh, easily. You had another 2 minutes.
Well, John, I have to use his comedy flute as a question. So, Sarah, would you like to start?
With questions?
Yeah, you got your hand
up. Oh, good.
You've got a presentation, Sarah, by all means. Will we get an EV news round today, though, Sarah?
I don't know. No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. The agenda's just too packed. You can't squeeze in news round as well. Come on. But anyway, I was really trying to take in everything you were saying. This is just fantastic news. So did you say that you surveyed 1,000 van customers and 81% would have an EV next time, but 90% of them don't know how to make that transition? When was this survey?
So yeah, 83%
83,
would consider an electric vehicle for the next purchase, but 90% don't feel they have enough information to make a decision.
Okay, wow, and that's why you developed all this amazing stuff. That's cool. So a 7-day trial, not a 14-day trial, based on what Ade and I were just saying about behaviour change needing 14 days. Have you seen success with the 7?
Yeah, so we'll obviously look at the data. We'll see what customers' responses are to what we do. If it needs to be 14 days, we'll look at it.
And yeah, I suppose there's an option. Obviously, it's a high value asset to you, but I wonder if people would be willing to sort of contribute or / pay towards that, like they do with the Milton Keynes Experience Centre, something psychological about if you pay for the experience, you'll get more out of it.
Yeah, it's a good point. We'll look at that. Yeah, really good point.
John.
Ooh. Andy, somebody was, I think it was Ade, was talking about it takes 2 to 3 weeks to change behaviour.
Bit quiet, John.
Am I really? That's unlike me.
First time he's heard that.
2 to 3 weeks to change behaviour. When a new customer comes to Vanarama and they think about moving to electric, do you enable them to have the vehicle on test for longer than the usual half an hour, give it a whirl, round the block, and see how you go?
So we don't traditionally do test drives at all. So with cars, our standard customer, if you like, who are buying ICE and vehicles at the minute, by the time they come to us, they've consumed 14 hours of online content. So very often with the product they're looking at, they know more about the vehicle than we do. So 96% of the customers who take delivery of our vehicles have never driven it until the day we deliver it to them.
Goodness me.
That's a big change from when I started in dealerships, and the model was bums on seats.
Yeah.
People are watching videos, they're reading reviews, they're talking to their friends, their peers. Obviously, electric's a bit different. That's why we've made this investment.
I think it's so important we're talking about behaviour change, and that's something I'm so interested in, because yes, a 2-week period of time is going to help you make that final decision, but you're absolutely right, 14 hours of online content doesn't actually surprise me. I think it's probably more than that in reality. We know that it takes something like 18 months to make the leap. So that's why things like World EV Day and EV Café and everything collaborative that we're doing is so important, because we'll go and talk about it to many, many friends. And actually, I'm going to start sharing this link on Facebook and seeing if we can get some sort of non-industry people along and just see what they think about everything we've got to say.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Just before you ask a question, Sam, I just want to invite Matthew Kiziak to come back online, so he's ready to start asking questions from the participants. But go ahead, Sam. Sorry.
Yeah. No, hi guys over in Vanarama. I was just curious about how many inquiries you get that are related to the charging infrastructure associated with the vehicle, rather than one of your vehicles that you're offering. Because obviously that's a whole new element of charging infrastructure, whether it be work or home or on the go. That's whereas your typical ICE customer, the fuel is something else, another problem, another day. I know what I'm doing there, but do you get a lot of inquiries, proportionally a lot of inquiries about the charging infrastructure associated with the vehicles you lease?
Yeah, so I haven't got the exact data or statistic on how many people ask it, but anecdotally, most customers have a question about charging infrastructure and networks, and that is still a challenge. I think we all know that. Speaking to our staff internally who've driven electric vehicles or drive electric vehicles, I've got one member of the team who told me last week he signed up to 9 different apps. So
is that all? Yeah.
Is that, yeah. I didn't know there was wine on this, so I would have had
I'm celebrating. It's World EV Day. It's just squash, don't worry.
Yeah, so I think something has to be done with that. Somehow you'd think someone's going to be able to aggregate the apps, so there's one app. But whether you can aggregate the charging infrastructure, I don't know. But
if only there was that.
Wouldn't that be good?
Any extra mention? There might be quite an important announcement later.
Very
I think it's also, sorry guys, it's one of the things that drove us with regard to the charge point. To offer a free charge point kind of answers the question before you get asked. And when people kind of begin to understand that 80% of my time I'm going to charge at home in more often cases, if they can, then that really sort of says, look, we know that one of the obstacles is, and what we're trying to do is make it easier for those customers to make a decision. But I think typically the research on charging points is often done elsewhere. so they'll Google charging points and are finding that information somewhere else. But so I think what we wanted to do is give the comfort to the customer that when they arrive at our door, we've already thought of that thing that they're thinking about over there and are able to address it and help them make that decision, reducing the barriers, basically.
John Vorderman is notifying us of the clock. We're running out of time. So Matt, I'll give you a couple of minutes just to go through some of the questions. We can get real snappy answers, and then sort of about 1:45 we'll introduce Edmund King onto the show. So over to you, Matt.
So, what do Vanarama offers to drivers who aren't able to charge at home? I knew that was going to come at some point.
It's a good point. So we've launched a couple of things during lockdown to try and help people who are kind of uncertain about jobs and the kind of income. So our kind of standout proposition for today's times is free redundancy cover, loss of earnings, and life event cover. You know, so if someone has a critical illness, or worst case loses their life. Typically with a lease car, you'd have to pay 50% of the rentals. We pay the rentals for them, so there's no charge if someone has a life event, or loses their job or loses their income for a self-employed customer.
Okay.
And also what we're thinking about is the ability to offer, and it's a thought process at the moment, but thinking about how people charge in public and do all that kind of stuff. So there's definitely something that the easy question to answer was the charge point. That's more difficult.
Yeah, no, I get that, Paul. Do you talk to your customers about electric capacity, consumption as they expand the number of vans, cars in the fleet? Is this a concern for your customers or not on their radar?
Some it's smaller than the questions around infrastructure, but yeah, the people who tend to have a fleet manager. So our sweet spot for customers for fleet size is kind of the 5 to 25. They tend not to have a fleet manager, but when we get inquiries, because of our brand presence, we get inquiries from customers who've got 100 vehicles. They typically tend to have a fleet manager, and that's more on their radar.
Cool. And last one for you guys, just to keep it short and snappy. What do you see as the key challenges to achieving EV mass market adoption?
Availability and price. So as they become more mass produced, and then costs come down as batteries range extends. So I don't think it's one thing, I think it's a multitude of things. But if I had to pick one thing, I would say charging infrastructure and range anxiety. Tackling that is probably the biggest challenge.
And there's a very similar question actually just dropped in, which was, what do you believe is the primary motivation for people to buy electric vans?
Oh, good question. I think certainly during lockdown, the kind of awareness of what we're doing to the environment has increased. And I don't know if that's just because everyone's had a period of time where they can reflect on everything, whether it's their work-life balance, the fact that you now work from home and don't have to go into the office, or it's the impact on the environment. Because we saw lots of things where you had the water in the Venice canals was clear, and people were suddenly realizing the power of not traveling so much and the air quality improving. I think there's a multitude of things, but it's got to be environmental.
And if I can just slip one last one in, Jonny, Ross Bolton's just asked, do you have a conversion around the TCO of electric vans? If so, how do you create the analysis? Is it a generic or bespoke to each customer? So do you have like a TCO calculator that you use, guys?
Yeah, it's very rudimentary. We're currently re-platforming the website, and when the website goes live, it will have an online calculator. But at the minute, it's pretty much spreadsheet driven.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Jonny, I think we've managed to get through all the questions that we've...
There, guys. Some of the partnership stuff will enable us to have a lot of really great data that we can begin to incorporate into a lot of the customer online journeys. So we're definitely looking to build out that piece. So sharing of data and building up that TCO story is really important.
Yeah, we'll be in a place where with a new website where a customer can input their reg number of their current vehicle, and we'll tell them what the vehicle they're looking at will compare in terms of TCO costs.
Spot on.
All right, thanks for that, Vanarama. Really insightful stuff. Interestingly, we have someone from Hong Kong today as well saying hello. So that's enough of the mailroom for now. We'll open it back up shortly after the next speaker. So I see there's some more questions in there. But now it's time to introduce Mr. Edmund King, the president of the AA. So a big warm welcome to you to the EV Cafe, Edmund. Please go ahead and turn on your camera and mic and present your screen.
He already has.
Yes, he already has. Sorry, my computer's a bit delayed today.
Way ahead of you.
I'm ahead of you.
It's all the 200 participants taking up my bandwidth, I think.
Nice.
Right, thanks, Johnny. First of all, I'm absolutely delighted to making my debut at the EV Cafe, particularly on World EV Day. Normally you have the AA's Mo Salah, Dean Hedger, young, agile, skillful. Unfortunately, coming off the bench today, you've got there James Milner, veteran, but work in all different areas. Actually, Mo Salah broke down yesterday and the AA recovered him, but that's another story. That's true. That's true. Dean is studying at the moment, so he's sorry that he couldn't be here. Yeah, I'm very, very interested in EVs and what all you guys are doing. And it was almost 19 years ago when Ken Livingston gave me the keys to my first EV. It was a little Ford Think car, a polyurethane car that they said had a range of 50 miles. I found out to my demise that it only had a range of about 37 miles, and I broke down and had to call the AA. But it was a fun little car. We used it in the media. We got a lot of exposure. But luckily, things have got a lot better. I mean, in those days, I lived in the first floor flat in Islington, and I did literally have a cable running down from the first floor above the pavement and plugged in the car. Now,
gee whiz, that is a really big health and safety hazard.
Gee whiz.
On purpose.
Yes. But thankfully, things have changed. Cars are faster, they're safer, they have a better range, we have more charging points, and most of them aren't made out of plastic. So things are getting better. Now, even longer ago at university, I used to win money with people guessing my middle name. My middle name begins with V, and you probably wouldn't guess it. Anyway, my middle name is Valerian. Now, valerian is a plant that actually produces a sedative, so don't fall asleep. Or he's a Roman emperor, Valerianus. Anyway, when I wanted to blog about 4 years ago on the AA website, I wanted to blog about EVs. So I thought I could use my middle name, Living with an EV by EV King. And I thought that would be good. But obviously my colleagues weren't very impressed, and they put it up, Living with an Electric Vehicle by Edmund King, AA President. Not a V in sight. Very boring colleagues. Anyway, I persevered. I have a personal registration number called EV10. I put E in my signature on my business cards, and they still didn't change the blog title. Anyway, the AA, we've got a long history of motoring, and we're really keen to be involved with EVs. So most of our patrols now are trained to level 2 technicians at the roadside. We have an independent garage network, Prestige. A third of that is EV capable. And we're now offering EV support to customers. If they get to a charging point, don't know what to do, we can give telephone help, we can give advice. And we've been running that with Swarco E-Connect for about 6 months, and we're rolling it out. There are some announcements coming very soon about other companies. But also we're looking at technicians that can go out and repair EV points. AA Cars, our used car portal, has an EV section, and our driving center, Drive Tech, actually can train drivers of EVs, and they're looking at e-scooters and e-mobility. Now, why does all this matter? Well, it matters to us because in our populace surveys, almost 50% of drivers, 47%, said their next car will be an EV. Now that is radical. That is really positive. And we know in the last few months, sales of EVs have gone up. During COVID, Tesla, top selling car for a couple of months, etc., etc. But I've got to say, in the last few weeks, there have been some interesting surveys out, but some of the findings, some of the assumptions are somewhat odd. And I think that we all, as an industry, just have to be more positive. We're in a great place. There are some great products out there. So let's shout about it. And yes, at the AA, we're not an EV paragon of virtue. We haven't yet got a van that can tow what we want to tow, that has the payload or the range. But we hope that we will be getting there, because we believe there's a real role for the AA representing drivers out there to talk up EVs. Let's not moan. Let's be positive. Let's spread the message. And I think my one message on World EV Day is let's get out there, and like Nike, let's do it. Thank you.
Oh, you're in the wrong place. We're very negative here. Please go.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you on today, Edmund. Great research by the AA, reading some comments, some real inspirational stuff there. So, John, over to you. Oh, John or Sarah, who was first? Oh, Paul had his hand up as well.
Well, as a founding member of World EV Day, Vanarama really should go first.
Oh, no. Stop it, John. Get on with it.
Edmund, how important is it that presidents, chief execs, very senior people in organisations drive through messages like you are in your organisation? Because very often you find that there are those at the operational level in the field who understand what they want to try and achieve, and very often they're the ambassadors for electric vehicles in an organisation. And it's critical, isn't it, that we have leaders who set the vision and the tone for an organisation, and you meet in the middle.
I think, John, that is absolutely crucial. You know, if we're going to get from talking about electric cars to cars, which they should be, they are cars, we need everyone involved. So at the AA a couple of years ago, we actually set up a task force that does bring together leaders from our operations, from insurance, from public affairs, from policy, so that we can have this vision. Because before we did that, they were all bits and pieces within the AA, and we were doing some good things, talking to charge post providers, etc. But it was a bit disparate, and that's what we've done, and we've pulled it together. But I do think it is important, because any company, for their fleets, if they're investing for the future, they need the chief executive, they need the finance director, they all need to be involved to get that message across. So I think it's crucial. I mean, obviously, we at the AA, we often get the question about breakdowns. You know, what will happen? Will you be out of business when everyone's got an EV? But interestingly, about 30% of the breakdowns with EVs are exactly the same as with other cars. They are tyres, wheels, and the 12-volt battery. Not the main battery, the 12-volt battery. So they are mainstream.
Yeah, good on you. Thanks, Edmund.
Sarah.
Well, what about Paul? I do feel bad.
No, you had your hand up before me. Go for it. Ladies first.
Well, then.
And Paul, you're next.
Just don't ask the question I'm going to ask.
Well, tell me what it was. No, I would like to hear more about, obviously you're going to be rolling out more hands-on deck expertise to fix charge posts and fix cars. What opportunities are there to marry up with people who already have electrical and mechanical engineering expertise on the marketplace? How quickly can we retrain those? I'm thinking about local injection to local economy and local businesses who are in the area that you find your customers stranded in. How quickly can you send someone out who is situated near to your broken down customer?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we've looked at is our colleagues in Holland at the ANWB who've actually done this and perhaps are a step ahead of us in this. The advantage for the AA, though, is that we have a mobile workforce of more than 3,000 patrols that are already out there. And we've actually found with a low level of training, they can do basic things to charge posts, you know, not the fully electrical things, but they can do basic maintenance. They can check out what's wrong. They can give basic advice. And because that workforce are out there, they can often get there quicker. We would then use a local network of technicians for the serious problems. But certainly something that I think our mobile capacity and our speed of response gives us a real advantage in that market.
Good. I just think, yeah, there's a really big opportunity for people who are already out there doing this sort of thing, particularly household engineers, or they're already ready to go, you know, and actually it may solve a lot of problems if you can enter into some kind of agreement with the pre-existing companies. Just it's Paul's turn.
So
you can't jump the queue. I'm pointing up there because there's a big screen.
So Paul, we've got you next, and then Sam, and then if I can ask Matt to come live from the mailroom because we've got some questions in the Q&A tab. So all yours, Paul.
Edmund, I got a brilliant question yesterday. So as part of the education sort of program that we're doing with the people here, we've got a bunch of electric vans here. And so I have two questions. The one question is, and the first main question is, what happens if one of these break down? Because obviously there's a number of differences between an electric vehicle and an ICE vehicle. What is the difference between a breakdown on an electric vehicle and the difference, particularly if it needs to get towed or it's run out of juice?
Yeah, on that one, obviously that is something we've looked at, and you know, you'll probably know that I've been pretty passionate campaigning against smart motorways and the lack of stopping places on smart motorways. Luckily, we've had some success there, and going forward, emergency laybys are going to be every 3/4 of a mile. And one of the reasons we campaigned on that is that if an electric vehicle does run out of power, many of them are actually harder to tow, or to tow on flat on their wheels, or they should be put onto a transporter. So that was a concern with smart motorways. So we think the extra laybys there will help. But when we've looked at the kind of breakdown faults, you know, very few are actually running out of charge. You know, it's less than 2%. Normally, as I said, it is tyres, it is losing your keys, it is other problems. But by training all of our patrols at the moment to level 2 standard, at least they can do the basics on the cars. They know what to look for. And often, you know, it might be a charging fault, but we're having to adapt as the market adapts. And we're pretty confident we're keeping pace. Whenever I turn up at Basingstoke, if I've borrowed an EV, all our technical people run up to me and say, Edmund, can we have it for 6 hours? Can we study it? We had the first EV hybrid rig at Albury that I know John has visited and seen there. And on that rig, we train our technicians. So we're pretty confident, you know, we're out there, we're fixing EVs at the moment, and we'll be gearing up for the future.
That's great. And just, I'm interested separately. So my first question is, how much do you need to tow in terms of weight capacity? So that's number one question. Number two question, how many people run out of fuel as a percentage of your breakdowns with ICE, dyno juice?
Yeah.
John puts it.
I mean, on the running out of fuel, it is, again, a pretty small proportion. It is slightly more with EVs than fuel, slightly more, but we're talking like 0.5%. So it's not a major issue. And in my view, we're seeing ranges are getting longer. The average range, I don't know, 210 miles. So it's a big difference from my 37-mile range. So, and I think, you know, most people, as they learn about EVs, as some of you guys have said, once you've experienced driving it, you know the true range, then you'll stop taking those risks. So I don't see it really, you know, we know people talk about range anxiety, but I think it's a kind of psychological problem more than an actual problem. And I think we can overcome it.
And how much do you need to tow?
Do you mean how many vehicles?
Weight. Yeah, what weight do you need?
Weight. No, it's not so much the weight. It depends on the vehicle. There are some vehicles where it says they can't be flat towed, and it's to do with the actual dimensions of the vehicles rather than the actual weight.
Yeah. So no, I was just thinking there is now a van on the market, or will be shortly, that can tow. There's two now. So.
Oh, okay.
Can we go to
take that offline with you?
Yeah, Sam. For you. So you
Paul, can you stop asking questions, please?
Move on. Sorry.
That was like 3 questions. You cheated.
It was, yeah. I had to wait a long time. What can I say?
We will. Sorry, Matt. We will have to ask that we bring the mailroom back in after the next guest speaker, just because we are short on time.
Okay. Sorry. One really quick question, which Edmund, you alluded to it in one of your answers to Paul's questions, and it's a question I think I asked you in person about a year ago, and you said it was a good idea then, and I wonder whether you still think it is. Obviously, the AA is many things, not just a recovery company, but does many other things in different business silos. One of which is new drivers, you know, teaching new drivers to learn to drive. One of the questions I think I asked you previously was, do you think it would be a good idea to lobby government to get people to have to do electric vehicle driving as part of all tests? Yeah. Because one of the things for me, and you and I have been doing this a very long time, we've enjoyed the experience of driving an EV for the first time a couple of decades ago. Everybody who's coming forward now has the opportunity to do it now, and should we be getting people to do that as by law?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I had a meeting with AA Driving School yesterday, and one of the things that we talk about, and we have talked to DFT about, is about changing the highway code to add in details about electric vehicles so that it then goes into the theory test. Currently with the theory test, you can be asked certain questions about, you know, a conventional car, where do you put in water, windscreen wiper wash. There's nothing about electric vehicles. So we believe if you introduce it in the theory test, it can then spread it out. It's also interesting though in driver training, because we have done various surveys with our driving instructors asking about what demand they're getting. So my son is learning with the AA at the moment. And I said to him, well, do you want to drive an automatic car? Because all EVs are in fact automatic cars, and you won't need to use the stick shift in the future. And he actually opted for the stick shift because he said if he goes on holiday in Spain and he wants to rent a car, they might not have EVs. But I think you're right. In due course, driver training will change. It will become easier to drive because EVs are easier to drive. But we need government, we need the highway code, we need the theory test to keep up with that. So yeah, very pertinent questions, and we're still chasing them.
Thank you.
Thank you. John, we all need to see your big clock more often.
No,
we're 5 minutes behind schedule. So great to hear from you. But it's now time for our next guest speaker. So it's goodbye for now until later in the show. And we will also open the mailroom immediately after our next speaker. So Matt, if you come on straight after the next presentation. So now we go live to Matt Walters from LeasePlan. Welcome to the EV Cafe. Would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself? And as soon as your slides start to show, that's when the 5 minutes will start. We do need to catch up on some time. So
I can do a 20-minute introduction then. That sounds great.
Okay.
Hi guys, thank you. And yeah, it's really great to be part of this on EV World Day. It's been a really kind of light tone, and I'm conscious that my slides strike a slightly more dark and somber note, but we'll certainly get through that. So very happy to be here. I also realised that Paul and I have got very similar press sense by the look of it. We should have really kind of checked in with each other beforehand. So I will share my screen.
Thank you. I'm sure we'll lighten the mood anyway.
Let's hope so. So for us today, what I'd really like to do is, you know, celebrating EV ownership worldwide. Have a chat about what we're doing as LeasePlan, and give you a view as to one of the best ways that people can acquire the new technology. And I did say it's kind of a slightly somber note. He says, trying to click onto his next slide. There we go. Wow, there's that somber note. So the world we live in today is on fire. I mean, both physically, tangibly, metaphorically. If you think about the wildfires that are currently raging in California and were raging last year in Australia, in recent weeks, you can't have escaped the fact that linking to COVID and the current crisis globally, that thousands more acres of Amazon forest are now under threat as it's being burnt by locals in what is being touted as the next gold rush. So it's a really critical time in which we live. So, and why is that important? Well, CO2 from road transportation accounts for about 20% of road emissions. So just getting from A to B, basically. And we as LeasePlan, we've got about 1.8 million vehicles on the road globally. That's obviously in our leased fleet. They're our customer vehicles. So we have a massive responsibility. I did just playfully work out what the square acreage of forest would be needed for carbon offsetting, and everybody likes a comparison to Wales. So it's about 2/3 the size of Wales if you to offset that carbon emission. So it's, you know, it's quite serious. And there was a comment earlier on and a question about driving from the top, and I think that's really important. So I'm not going to read that off on the screen. So that's our CEO Tex Hunting, and the initiative to join EV100, the initiatives to join the Business Clean Air Task Force, part of the Climate Action Group, are driven down from the top. And our commitments to EV100 were actually zero emission or fully electric from our own fleet, as in the cars that myself and my colleagues drive, by 2021, and net zero from our 1.8 million vehicles by 2030. That's now gone one step further. So the aim is to actually achieve zero tailpipe emissions rather than carbon offsetting and carbon credits in the mix as well, which is a very, very steep target. But there is some good news. EV salary sacrifice, and we're working with lots of people at the moment. So we're working with organizations, we're working with the likes of people like Octopus Energy, working with lots and lots of customers. And there is no cheaper way to drive an electric vehicle other than salary sacrifice. In essence, you have from an EV salary sacrifice wrapper, it's a contract hire vehicle. It's a typical relationship between lessee and lessor that exists. And then there is a salary sacrifice wrapper where employees contribute towards their car. But what happened in April 2020 was the government backed a horse, basically. And the government said, right, zero emission, we think that EV is the right technology, and we are now publicising the next 5 years worth of tax legislation, benefit in kind, company car tax. Of course, things can change, but it's probably the first time in the last 10 years that we've had a 5-year view of what's going to happen in benefit in kind. And for electric vehicles, for the first time ever, 2020, it's 0%. It's free for the employee as a company car. It means it's more expensive for the employer and they need to seek contribution. And that goes to 1% next year, 2% the year after, and it continues. So if you think about what that actually means in a salary sacrifice framework, effectively the legislation exists today so that that vehicle can be taken and that the employee and employer can benefit from the low taxation that's available and benefit from the full income tax relief and national insurance contributions. Would be a presentation from a fleet consultant without talking about tax, but I'll keep it that light for you. So when we're thinking about this, obviously we've done a huge amount of research. 80% of employers now have said they're looking actively at a more sustainable, cost-effective employee benefit, but 49% are unaware of the savings available through salary sacrifice. It's 0% benefit in kind electric car for employees currently, which obviously means 13.8% national insurance contributions for employers is also zero. And 8 out of 10 employers recognise the importance of encouraging a more sustainable future, which is fantastic. And similar to previous presenters, 60% of those employees surveyed expressed an interest in electric cars. That's a huge number. And that's across 250 HR award directives. So from the bottom up and from the top down, there is a push now across that corporate landscape to move into those EVs.
Matt, you've got about 30 seconds, my friend.
Thank you. So, yeah, the news gets even better. Salary sacrifice is the model that really, really works very well. And it's going to be with us at least for the next 5 years while those taxation remain low on EVs. So it's a fantastic way to get those vehicles into your employee fleet and get those vehicles into your own fleets. Thank you.
Good effort, mate.
Excellent.
Well done, you made it.
Well done.
So thanks, Matt. Great stuff. All right. So Matt from the mailroom, can you come back? Yeah, that's it. And before anything else, before panelists and mailroom questions, I would like to get one in quickly, actually. So Matt, you said salary sacrifice is cheapest or cheaper. How does it compare to PCH contract hire?
Well, okay, so I'll give you an example. So Tesla 3 standard, right? It's the one that everybody points towards. Everybody's got an opinion on Tesla. I'm certainly not going to express mine on this presentation, but they've done a huge amount for EVs. So if you think about a Model 3 standard, salary sacrifice, this is nothing to do with allowances. This is a net neutral position for the employee. So they can provide this vehicle to an employee at no cost to themselves. That car's at £425 net cost to the driver. So I'm not going to put up lots of funny graphs about salary sacrifice because it just makes it look more confusing than it is. That is a fully insured, fully maintained vehicle on a 3-year 20k contract, £425 a year. And because it's salary sacrifice, it doesn't flex. So it remains constant. And if you do the calculation, if you try and find a fully insured, fully maintained Tesla 3 on a PCH deal, you're looking at about £795. So it's nearly half. And as you look at the vehicles, you know, like there's an I-Pace, £534, that's £1,077 on the nearest PCH deal. So that'll give you an idea.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. I'd very much like to see that comparison, but with a Renault Zoe next time. So if we can go over to Matt, who's going to, we've got 16 questions that are outstanding at the moment. So over to you.
Yeah, some of these are going to roll to the end, Jonny, because there's quite a few questions just for the panel in general. Okay. So if we can try and make some time at the end, that'd be awesome. So first question to Matt, has he gone? Matt, have you vanished? Other Matt?
No, I'm still here.
Come back, Matt. Come back.
I'm here. I was being disciplined. I turned my video off. You don't want to look at me anymore.
First question, Matt. Obvious question. How do we make more people aware about salary sacrifice and savings?
That's a really good question. I think it's. I think this is one of those topics where it's about collaboration. So this isn't about lease plan salary sacrifice scheme. It's not about, you know, anybody else's. It's about getting the message out there that it's a really, really good way to do these things. And I think we need to work more collaboratively in groups like this. Clean Air Action Group, when we presented to an all-parliamentary group the other day of about 60 employees, we put salary sacrifice on the agenda and showed them how it works, and we got encouragement. So I think it's about conversation, and it's just making sure that we're discussing it as widely as possible.
Cool.
On the back of what Matt's just said, I think it's really important to understand that it is really a partnership between one company and another, because, you know, as LeasePlan will provide an infrastructure and some information and supporting material for a company to set up that scheme. So the company has to set up that scheme. You or I can't just go out and get a salary sacrifice car. It has to be done very much with the company of the employee really in front and center in that partnership with somebody like a LeasePlan or another, to be able to make that work. So it's important to make that distinction. You can't just walk out and get a salary sacrifice vehicle. There is a process to go through, but one
there is, you're right, Paul, but there are white label companies springing up. So you can now go to Octopus Energy and get your home electric and a charge point and an EV through a salary sacrifice wrapper through them.
Okay.
So it's starting, that move is starting, but you're right, the mainstay in fleets, you need that company wrapper, and it's about making sure that we don't overcomplicate it, and it's about making sure that we're able to communicate the benefits properly to both employee and employer. You're right.
Brilliant. Thanks, Matt. Is BB King still available? Is he still out there in the ether watching us? Here he is. There's that voice.
Thank you.
Edmund, load of questions from you that we obviously didn't get a chance to go through. Starting with an amusing one first. When will the AA return to its heritage of two wheels and bringing electric bikes into the fleet?
Yeah, you know what? We had electric scooters in London probably about 6 or 7 years ago in central London. And what we actually found, because the range was so bad, each patrol needed 2 scooters to actually get around because the charging wasn't so good. But maybe we should revisit it because, as I said before, technology has got better. But we've certainly tried it. Yeah.
Awesome. Do you believe the UK's government's proposed ban on new ICE vehicles should be moved forward to 2030?
I think that is incredibly challenging. I mean, I actually think 2035 is pretty challenging. If you think about it, that's 15 years ahead. So, and I think a number of things have to be done before then. So personally, I think with all that we've got to do, all the changes we need for industry to produce the cars for the mass market, to get the supply of cars, I think 2035 is actually pretty ambitious, but it's a good thing to aim for.
Brilliant. Now, with your well-documented love of smart motorways, this question's right up your street. Do we know how many EVs have run out of battery on a smart motorway to date?
No, we don't. What I've been doing at the AA, whenever there's a breakdown that's serious, you know, in terms of it causes an accident or some problem, on the forms that I get, and I get emailed a serious incident form, there is a bit that says, was it a smart motorway? So I keep a keen eye on it. But I can say, certainly in the last 12 months, we have not had an EV breakdown in a live lane on a smart motorway. But obviously, as you get more EVs, 38% of breakdowns on smart motorways, 38% happen in live lanes, which I think is very, very scary. So, you know, ultimately, when we've got more EVs out there, there will be some breakdowns. It might not be for running out of charge, but for other reasons.
Brilliant. Could it be perceived that mobile rescue or roadside charging is perpetuating range anxiety or charge point anxiety? Do we think that people are getting anxiety about charge points now, or is that a bit old hat? I think it's old hat personally, but
yeah, I mean, it still comes up in the surveys that we do. People still say it, but I think it was what I was saying in the start. We've got to start, not us. I'm talking about the industry broader. You guys are incredibly positive, so it wasn't any reaction at that. But I think generally, no, quite seriously, we got to speak this up. These cars are great. The majority of people will charge at home. They'll have more than 200 miles of charge. The average journey is about 10 miles or less. And this whole thing about, oh, once a year I go up to Glasgow or I go up to the Lake District, you know, is a red herring. So I think my view is we've got to talk it up, not talk it down.
Do you know, I had exactly the same argument with some friends of mine last night on social media, and it is the same thing. And it is people that just don't, you know, they can't find an excuse, so they just say, oh, but I go here once a year and I can't do it. Last one for you, Edmund. Do you think battery swapping could be a model which is achievable, like NIO has done in China? Are the AA looking at this model? And that's Aaron from Electric Miles. That's that.
Yeah, I mean, when I did a study looking at the future of taxation and sustainable transport and produced a thesis called Road Miles with my wife, who's an economist, actually. It was something we looked at there. And when we looked at it, this was about 2.5 years ago, we thought it might be feasible for the smaller vehicles, so e-scooters and that category. But we felt it was pretty expensive. Technologically, it was difficult for car-sized vehicles. So no, I think battery technology has improved in that 2.5 years. So rather than swapping the batteries, I think recharging them is the answer.
Excellent. EV King, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Last question here for Matt. Can salary sacrifice apply to self-employed consultants and contractors?
It's a great question. My understanding is no, it can't. So limited liability partnerships, it can't. Contractors, yes, it can. If you need to structure it in the right way, but it's more complex. But limited, so partnerships, you need to be really, really careful of.
Excellent. Jonny, the rest of the questions are sort of panel-based questions, which might be left best for the end.
Absolutely.
So that's it from the mailroom now. Thanks, guys.
We're actually back on track, which is great. So thank you, Matt. Can I please ask that you also come back on for the last 20 minutes for a Q&A session, so we'll see you later. Please, can I also ask that all the special guests do join the EV Cafe group on LinkedIn. So if members have further questions, particularly on salary sacrifice, Matt, and they have the means to speak to someone. So now it's time to introduce Melanie from ZapMap. She's no newbie to the EV Cafe. This is actually her second appearance. I guess that's just how wonderful ZapMap is. But she comes to us today with some breaking news, latest developments, so which I'm sure we will all find interesting. So, hello, Melanie. Welcome back to the EV Cafe. Are you there? Is she there?
Connected by Valerian.
I'm here.
There she is. Hello there. Got worried all for a second then.
No, don't worry. I hadn't gone anywhere. Hi everyone. Thanks very much for having me on the EV Cafe for the second time. That is brilliant, especially on World EV Day. And yeah, last time I was talking about data, which is my second love, but my first love is all about the EV drivers. So I'm really pleased to be talking more specifically about ZapMap and a sort of a new product launch, which we launched on Monday. So I will share my screen. And hope I can go. Is that showing okay?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yes, so today, World EV Day, on Monday, we launched ZapPay, which is our new and simple way to pay for charging across networks. So really, what's this all about? I hope most of you will have heard of ZapMap, and ZapMap has been around since 2012 and in an app form since 2014. And really our aim has always been to, what can we do to make EV charging simple for EV drivers? So up until now, it's been about searching for charge points, so using the filters to try and find available charge points near you that are compatible with your car, to plan longer electric journeys using the route planner, and most importantly, sharing updates with other EV drivers. And we know that people find that really useful to get real on-the-ground information about what's happening at different charge points. So really the next obvious thing for us to do was to add the ability to pay when you are within the ZapMap app. So you can, so we now have the functionality that you can pay across networks. So now our proposition, it's about search, plan, and share updates and pay all in one app. So that's sort of the central ZapPay proposition within the ZapMap app. Going to talk you through a little bit about how it works. So we're saying it's as easy as ABC. So first of all, within the ZapMap app, you go to the filters, find ZapMap ZapPay enabled points. Or go onto a point and find, go into the check-in, then you select a connector, add your payment type, or if you've already added it before, just add your CVC and start charging. It really is that simple. And then once you're on your way to charging, you can, while you are charging, you're able to use, like other sort of network apps, you can view status updates while you're away from the charge point, and then when the charging is finished, you can then have all your charging history within ZapMap, including a downloadable ZapPay receipt. so the next question, obvious question, is where can I actually go and have a go on ZapPay? So we have launched with Ingenie, a great UK-wide rapid charging network. So we are currently live on 10 Ingenie points across 5 locations: London, Bristol, 2 points in Gloucester, and 1 in Chepstow. And we are just, because it's a new system for us, we've obviously done loads of testing, but we wanted to make it live on a sort of limited number of points so we could get real feedback from EV drivers. By the end of September, we are going to have rolled out across all their 150 points. So at any Ingenie charge point, you will then be able to use ZapPay. Very soon after that, we've got ESB EV Solutions, who've got a great rapid network, and soon going to be rolling out more chargers across Birmingham, Life and Hubster, which are also really good networks I'm sure you're aware of. And then following on from that, we are in discussions with loads of other networks, and we're going to be rolling out across UK back end of 2020 and across 2021. So like any new bit of functionality, it will take a little while until we've got full coverage, but we're really pleased. It's in the market, it's here, and it is coming and building. So that is really ZapPay in a nutshell. I'm ready for any questions.
Thank you very much. So yeah, fantastic development from ZapPay. I just want to say thank you for coming back on again to the EV Cafe, and thanks to all the special guests today. It's been fantastic. But before we invite them all back on, I'm sure the panel have some questions for you. So, and also, can I ask that Matt come back on, as you might as well stay on, to be honest. We have lots of outstanding questions. So yes, over to you, Sarah, with your hands up first.
I just love this. This is the best thing. But at the moment, obviously at the moment, it's limited companies. I heard you. I know you want to test it, but I've seen a great comment there from Tina Poole, who says ZapPay could be improved to use Apple Pay or /Google Pay, so that users don't need to go through typing in card details. What do you think?
I mean, I think yes. This is the first, the first roll up. Currently, it's using credit and debit cards. Once you've entered your credit and debit card, it's easy. Absolutely, digital payments and Android Pay and Google Pay and Apple Pay are obviously technologies which are growing in importance. So that is on our roadmap.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm sure everyone will be pleased to hear that. Thanks, Melanie.
Melanie, do you think this has been a bit of a failure of government, in that when we set out on the EV charging network, it was specified that we should all play nice together and all the charge point operators should be interoperable, and we had whitelists drawn up so that people could easily use charge points? And don't all roads lead back to government? They've just been a bit passive and said, oh, well, we'll just put some charge points in. It's a game with lots of numbers. As long as we've got 10,000, 20,000 points, we'll be all right. It doesn't matter that customer interaction and their experience has been appalling.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think if you look back retrospectively, you look at some other governments around Europe, I mean, in particular, the Netherlands, I would say they started right from the beginning, setting out interoperability, and they've developed loads of fantastic standards, including OCPI, which is what we're using for ZapPay. I mean, I guess we are where we are. The market has developed in a bit of an ad hoc way. Yeah, I know the government is aware of the issue that EV drivers have of having lots of different charge cards and apps and having to use, and they're aware of it, and I think they want a market solution to evolve. I think they're not very keen on legislating directly for it. So yeah, I mean, I don't, it isn't a great situation, but now we have been working with all the different networks over the last 5 years, and we have good relationships with them, and I think they understand that EV drivers need some consistencies. Not everyone is going to, obviously not everyone's going to be using ZapPay. There's lots of other solutions out there. There's membership schemes, there's other ways to pay, but for people who come to a new place, who are really unfamiliar with the charging points, they need to have a simple solution which is familiar to them, and they can get all their charging history. So yeah.
And the critical part of that though, Melanie, is that charge point operators need to sign up to your platform. Yeah. And my fear is that charge point operators are quite insular and don't see things from a customer's perspective. They just get their share of the cake and aren't really bothered if you go somewhere else with another card. They just want that customer and that interaction. And we need to encourage charge point operators to work together, whether it's your platform or another. To me, it doesn't really matter. What's key is that we start to see things from the customer's perspective.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I totally agree. It's about the EV drivers, and I think networks do see the benefit of people working together, and they need to get people to know where their charge points are. And as we were talking about before, there is a lot of charge points out there, and there's increasingly, especially in some hotspots, there's a lot of competition. So EV drivers need to be able to discover their charge points, and they need to have a good experience, or else they'll go elsewhere. So it's interesting. We've had a really good response from the networks, because I think they recognise that not all the networks, but most of the networks, they recognise that there's a real need for this, and they need to provide. It's not just about putting in devices in the ground. They need to provide a good customer experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Melanie.
Notice my hand disappears sometimes, which doesn't help when
Yeah.
Hi, Melanie. A couple of sort of slightly challenging questions, I suppose, is that I'm just trying to get my head around this as a solution, because if you've got, let's say, 2,200 locations, rapid chargers, I think, in the UK, something like that, what percentage of that do you think you will be able to get onto your platform? And I guess the second question is the default simple solution simply contactless at all of those locations?
Yeah, so I mean, we've got our initial networks signed up, and as I've said, we're in discussion with a lot of the other networks. Our aim is to get to 100%, and we believe there's a real benefit for consumers on this. We believe we're going to bring increased utilization to the networks, greater visibility to the networks. We're going to be producing solutions for fleets. So we haven't talked about, they also need a solution. So that is our aim, to get 100% of networks on board and to provide a really convenient solution for EV drivers. I mean, in terms of contactless is a fantastic solution. We don't see ZapPay as being the only solution. It is a solution. It has benefits over contactless, and you can see your status while you're away from your when you're away from your car. You can get your receipts and charging history all in one place. But contactless is a fantastic solution, and also has its place for people who just want to turn up in a very ad hoc way and use a charger.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Blimey, we have over to you, John, quickly.
Just a very quick point, really, Melanie, that this world needs more innovators, and you're being innovative. And I just wanted to say thank you, really, because I think at least you've put your head above the parapet and recognised that there's an imperfect world that we live with, and you're trying to do something about it. So bless you for that, and whatever we can do to help. To encourage charge point operators to work collaboratively with you, because collaboration, somebody made the point in the comments that collaboration isn't action. Collaboration is just lots of people talking to each other and kind of agreeing on stuff. And actually, you're taking action. We need more of that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's not just the ZapMap team has been working really hard cross lockdown to get it all done. So.
Yeah, John, there's a few comments in the chat as well I noticed with Melanie about the benefit that it can create from an auditing or receipt and administrative point of view. I think that's a really valid point in terms of the ability of continuity of auditing.
Yeah. Excellent. So we have 23 questions and counting. And before we go over to Matt to get those answered, can I also ask that all the special guests that we've had on today, so like Edmund and Matt, you're already there, and everyone else, so come online to help answer those questions. In the meantime, Paul, isn't it time for you to disappear to do some roving reporting a bit later on?
Are you going to find me? Can you? You've got to find me on my cell.
Okay, I'll promote you. Yeah, I'll get you. Yeah. So in the meantime,
wait a minute, everybody. Bye. You can follow me.
Melanie, I've got so many questions for you, my love. A bit like last time you were on, so we'll try and get through them as quick as we can. So, we were talking about collaboration, John. we've had a request for you, Melanie. Please can we have a new filter in Zap Maps to only show charging locations which have 2 or more units?
Yeah, clocked. It's on the list.
There's some feedback for you.
It's needed.
I'm assuming, can you view the potential cost in advance so you select based on price, exactly like you can do today on Zap Map? I'm assuming that's not changed.
Sorry,
So,
say that again?
Can you view the potential costs in advance so that you can select based on price? I'm assuming that stays as it is today where you can get the prices. That's fine.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Is there going to be a...
He's from up north. He doesn't speak proper.
Sorry, I can't help it. As a northerner, what can I say? Is there a cost difference between what ZapPay charge and the CPO? If not, will this stay like for the foreseeable future? There you go. I'll try and enunciate better, John.
Yeah, so the focus is on having a simple pay-as-you-go tariff, and it will be at or very close to the CPO's pay-as-you-go price. And Genie, it's 36. They charge 36p. We're charging 36p. I get, we reserve the right at some point to add a small ZapPay charge, but for the foreseeable future, that is going to be 0. So yes, it's at or very close to the CPO pay-as-you-go price.
Brilliant. Does ZapMap/Pay work while on holiday in Europe? I'll take it that's a no at the moment.
Yeah, at the moment, it's a no, but watch this space.
Is it possible to use the ZapMap phone app as a virtual smart card? It would be great if you could use the phone to start the charger for when the comms are down.
Yeah, so I think again that's something we're looking at, so being able to use sort of effectively using it as a contactless payment. So that's something in the future. So not in version 1, but on the roadmap. Excellent.
There's a question here. Was it for an individual or for a fleet user? You've answered that already. You've said that fleets come in.
Matt, can we just park the question just for a moment?
Of course we can.
We're going to go live.
Oh, sorry, Melanie. We're going live to Paul.
Over to you, Paul.
Hello, everybody. I am outside, and for some reason, my screen is mirrored, so I'm going to be confused at what I'm looking at and where I'm actually going to go. But in the spirit of being the van geek that I am, I wanted to celebrate the fact that on this EV Day, World EV Day, there are more vans available on the roads, which is fantastic news. So I'm going to go this way. That's the way I'm going to go. So what you can see behind me is a couple of Maxus vehicles. There's the E-Deliver 9. Now, Edmund was talking earlier about not being able to tow with his fleet. And of course, this is the E-Deliver 9, which is here somewhere. It's not working on my... Anyway, it's mirrored. I don't know. There's something weird going on. But the blue one behind me has got a towing capacity of 1,500 kilos. So yay for the first electric van to come on the market with towing capacity. It's going to have ranges up to nearly 200 miles, 176 miles for the big battery on a big van. That's great news. And then the little one, the little white one, the Maxus E-Deliver 3, is also got a range of 150 kilos, as is available immediately. So I'm excited by these guys. They're bringing a challenge to the rest of the manufacturers, in my opinion. Coming from China as they do, the Maxus is now being imported and making a difference. They are also a partner of World EV Day, so well done those guys. And there is a vehicle here that is not a partner of World EV Day. So in the spirit of not celebrating the ones that haven't partnered with World EV Day, we'll just say there is a van on the market with 200 miles plus range, which is great news. So the issues that people are facing around range anxiety and things like that should be solved. But I am not going to spend any more time. There is the Nissan ENV200 in there, which you've already seen. But if I go back in there, it's going to make an awful noise. Oh. So I just wanted to celebrate that fact that there are great vans on the market or just coming on the market. The E-Deliver 9 will be available from November onwards. And I'm going to hand back to the studio. I've always wanted to say that.
Yeah, sorry, Paul. I noticed there's no Renault products with you. I assume that's because they're in demand another one.
Yeah, they're all out on the road, Johnny. What can I say? They're all out there doing the job and doing a great job at that.
Maybe you can give the new Zoe van and new Master Developments a quick shout out.
Well, Johnny, listen, you know how much I've wanted the new Zoe van. I almost stole it off you from the last session. So the Zoe van is an incredible addition. 245 miles range, which is a van with massive range, and it is really exciting. It's got 22 kilowatt AC charging and fast charging to boot. What can be better? If you're in the market for a very small van, that is perfect.
Brilliant. Okay, so back to the studio then, Paul.
Thank you.
Hey.
Matt, over to you, because we've still got lots of questions to get.
Yeah, no problem, Johnny. So, Melanie, sorry, more questions for you, love. So, firstly, how easy have CPOs been to work with ZapPay?
Well, we've obviously, to launch ZapPay, we've been working with Engenie, who have been a great partner. You've obviously got to do a bit of collaboration to make sure the systems are talking to each other well and all the testing. So they've been great. Our next three are ESB, Life, and Hubster, been fantastic. But we obviously haven't integrated yet, but they're next. And yeah, so basically good.
Brill. Yes.
Can I ask a quick question to Melanie from the first question you asked about the 2 or more charge posts
yeah, go for it.
Filter? Is that going to be 2 or more, or can you vary the number of charge points per location? Because in my humble opinion, 2 isn't even close to enough per location. It should probably be more like 10.
We've been thinking about that, whether you actually want to be able to say, okay, 2 or more just being a basic filter, and then saying, then actually I want the charging hub, or to be able to say I want one with more than 5. So we're sort of pondering it. Yeah, we might ask for feedback what people would prefer. I think the basic is we need 2 or more. 2 is essential for lots of people, but people want to also be able to find the hubs.
Thanks.
Well, right, back into the questions. Are we in danger of replacing loads of CPO apps with loads of fuel card style apps, e.g. ZapPay, Electric Juice, Anywhere Charging?
I think the point of ZapPay is that ZapMap is an app that over 100,000 people are already using anyway. So hopefully the majority of EV drivers have got that downloaded. So they're already, it's not just a payment service, they're already using it to search for the charge points, to plan their routes, and to interact with other EV drivers. So we don't see this as a new app. It's an app that most people have already got, a large proportion of EV drivers already got, and it's just a new service on top of that.
Another one, are there any plans to introduce AMPR technology into ZapPay?
Ooh, what's that?
Where it reads your number plates.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay, yeah, we thought about that. It's not on the immediate roadmap, but I guess people are thinking about being able to select their exact vehicle. Yeah, so yeah, that's interesting. Not on the immediate roadmap, but a possibility.
All right. So next one for you, Melanie, and I think I'm just reading these out manually, but I think some of these you've answered. So we spoke about the app. It's going to provide charge history and data and all that sort of stuff to see how much kilowatts you've used and when the car's been charged and things like that. Yeah.
So
Brill.
There's a history section where you can look at all your different charges. At the moment, there's a big long list, but in future development, we'll be providing some sort of more aggregated reporting as well.
Okay. What else have we got for you? Have any CPOs already categorically refused ZapPay?
That's an interesting question. I would say...
I would say yes. Let me be wrong. I would say yes.
I'm not saying no, but I'm not saying yes.
We could probably name them, Melanie.
Melanie, to be honest, as you probably remember, about 4 or 5 years ago, Renault spoke about doing a very similar system where we would have a card that we could give to all our drivers that they could then, so you bought a Renault Zoe, you got a little card, and that would then put you onto the network, and you just have an account with Renault, and we'd shift the money around. Yeah. That still hasn't got off the ground because of certain providers in the UK. Yeah. So well done to you for where you're at.
Thank you.
What else have we got? So, when is ZapMap coming to CarPlay Android Auto? Using it on the road is currently dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, again, CarPlay Android Auto is an obvious product development for us. The challenge is that neither Google nor Apple currently accept navigation apps such as us. So it's something that such as that. So we're working on trying to work out a way that we can get onto the platform.
No problem. And then final comment, one from Russ. Superb innovation from ZapMap. Are you able to use a fuel card as a payment method?
So not at present. Not at present. At the present, it is focused on credit or debit card that you put within the app.
Brilliant. Melanie, that was exhausting, but we've got there.
Did it? Well done.
So we've now got some questions for the panel in general. So,
oh dear.
With Brexit negotiations looking like a no deal, how will the UK ensure it gets its allocation from OEMs?
That's a great question.
Anyone want to
put my hand up or just answer it?
Yeah, go for it, Matt.
So it's the small hill on which I die. So any presentation I've ever done, I have a little moan about the fact that we're not doing enough. So we're already struggling for factory build slots, as are most countries. Countries such as Norway have put in punitive tariffs on ICE vehicles now for manufacturers to sell. The important bit now is that we're starting to get recognition that it isn't part of the Brexit negotiations. I mentioned the all-parliamentary political group that we presented at the other day as part of Business Clean Air Task Force. And Geraint Jones actually took a motion away to make sure that it was tabled, because post-Brexit, of course, we no longer count towards the EU emissions targets. So, manufacturers that currently can sell their vehicles 4 times over is a fairly well touted stat. We need to do something to make sure that they are still supplying their vehicles in good demand to the UK, regardless of whether tariffs are levelled on it or not. I think the argument is different. There has to be a recognition, and organisations such as SMMT need to be lobbying and making sure that we get a fair crack of the whip, because otherwise any target you put in place for going zero emission in the UK is for nothing.
Sarah, you've put your hand up to answer this question already, I believe.
I don't know. One of them I put my hand up, and another I was like, oh,
what does the panel make of Ford UK's MD's call for an electrification minister?
Yes, I thought that was really exciting. I don't know how likely it is. Let's throw it open to the floor. But how great would that be? We've got a minister for everything else. If we've got someone in the house, John, you need to do that in the house.
In the house.
You didn't ask for ministers to be electrocuted.
No. Go on, John, tell us.
What utter nonsense. The chief exec of Ford, the organisation that has no meaningful electric vehicle presence, is calling for an electrification minister. Utter garbage. We have a transport minister who drives a Tesla, understands this marketplace, can put the legislation in place that we need. Utter nonsense. Should be taken out on a horsewhip. There you go.
Terribly unfair. I mean, Ford are launching with the Mustang electric vehicle.
Not a Mustang. Not a Mustang.
I think you're missing a point here. Okay, so the average Joe who doesn't ever want to switch to EV, who may in fact drive perhaps something that's non-EV, like something that Ford may or may not make, could finally get that voice out there that we need to hear. This is what's going to appear in Viz magazine. Is that still a thing? Or like something that's widespread? And the places where we don't go, I need the message out there wider than the normal companies we're used to hearing from. I was impressed that Ford put their head above the parapet with this one.
I'd have shot it off.
Well,
right.
Everyone's welcome to the party until
in the spirit that there's,
apparently.
In the spirit that there's still quite a few questions left and we're running out of time, I'll move us on.
Move on.
What does the panel think should be done about Ecotricity?
What do you mean? I don't mind. Ecotricity are doing everything they can. They're based on bills for mills, so unless they've got more customers, they can't replenish the charges they've got. And all the legacy charges have now got, the new ones are coming forward as well. And let's not forget, they did everything for us 5 years ago when we had nothing. So
I know.
Hang on, don't we have a solution already?
I'm really sorry.
On the Café already with Mr. Edmund King's AA. They could go and service those charge points.
I mean, it certainly was something that came up when we did the ITV program with Ginny Buckley last week. And one of the things that did come up was the reliability of the charging network, particularly at motorway service areas, that was actually putting people off. So we do think that that is incredibly important. You know, what Melanie's talked about, making payment easier, is brilliant, and we need all of that. But also we do need a degree of reliability, particularly if there are motorway service areas which are almost a government monopoly.
Yeah. Right. We'll try and find a question that's less political. Actually, they're all like that, to be honest. I recently rewatched the episode of Grand Tour where Richard Hammond rolled an electric supercar and it caught on fire. The fire aspect of EVs' falling impact is a major concern in the insurance industry and is causing underwriters to be slow to get on board with them. Is this just paranoia? Have manufacturers taken measures around this? Genuinely looking to learn something to take into discussions?
I mean,
would anyone like to put?
Yeah, I mean, on one part of that, I have talked to quite a few insurers about electric vehicles and why premiums are higher. And that didn't come up as an issue per se. The bigger issue was things, availability of parts, cost of parts, etc. That actually came up before any concerns about actually, you know, the vehicles catching fire and not being able to put out. So certainly from the insurers I've talked to, it's not top of their list.
All I would say on that point was, you know, as we all know, a lithium fire burns slowly and for a long period of time rather than just bursting into flames. So go on, John.
We've got Euro NCAP as the standard in the industry. Both Tesla Model S, Model 3, they're 5-star rated. They go through the same crash test as every other internal combustion engine vehicle and have passed with flying colours. There's always a concern about fire in any vehicle. The source is different sometimes, the fuel is different, but fundamentally they're dangerous things, but as safe as they can be.
Stick that one in the myth-busting bucket.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sam?
Stick that one in the myth-busting bucket.
Mr. Kirby's put his hands up to answer a question. Currently, what electric vans are on the market that can tow 1.5 tonne or above, Mr. Kirby?
Well, the simple answer immediately is none. There is no vans available that can tow. There is now one already on the market that can tow a tonne, and there is one coming in November that we might have talked about earlier, that will have a 1,500 kilo towing capacity. So there is movement, and I recognise that I think it's a wider conversation that vans are still not yet fit for purpose. We remain the Cinderella of the motor industry. We are always a little bit later to the party with all the relevant tech. And, you know, coming back to the 2030, 2035, 2040, whatever it is, vans are front and center as a challenge to be able to do everything that they can do today, which is quite vast, the array of jobs and uses that vans have. So just an opportunity to take that to say, help Cinderella come to the ball, and manufacturers, particularly Ford, who are well known for their van offering, to come to the party and do things like create good towing capacity, like being able to handle ancillary equipment as well. There you go.
It's worth saying, Paul, that one of Edmund's people, Keith, gave a technical answer. He needs a 2.2 tonne towing capacity to be able to tow vehicles off of motorways with no bloody labour. Okay. So they're just not fit for purpose, yet we've got marketplaces that are crying out for them. And I don't understand why commerce hasn't woken up and said, oh yeah, we should build some big vans that are electric, because customers are there.
Jonny, I know there's a couple of questions left over. I mean, I'll happily clean them up in the chat box because we're about out of time. So I'll pass it back over to you, pal.
Yeah, we are. I just want to say what a fantastic show it's been today.
Can't hear you, Jonny.
Jonny, you've gone quiet.
Can you hear me?
That's better.
I hear you now.
I was leaning back, slouching there. I just wanted to say what a fantastic show it's been today. Some amazing special guests. So a big thanks to you all, and of course the attendees for today. Just some quick reminders before we do start to sign off. Please do join the EV Cafe group so we can keep the discussions going or answer any questions that we have missed because we've run out of time. But until next time, which will be the 23rd, where we'll be joining the Automotive EV Week as a partner there, and we'll be running an EVSE myth-busting session. So please do sign up. Link will be in the EV Cafe group as well. We would always welcome your feedback for the show, the content, speakers of the next shows. We're always looking to improve. I also want to make you aware quickly, whilst I've got you for a second, of a campaign that's taking place today from Renault Dealer Network. They're carrying out what we're calling a Renault relay. It's called Zoe's Big Journey or something like that, where Zoe will be driven from Land's End to John O'Groats. I will post more information on this on the LinkedIn Cafe group for you to follow and see how they're getting on. In the meantime, if you want to catch up or if you missed anything from today, then please feel free to visit our EV Cafe Crew YouTube channel under EV Cafe, of course. I just want to say, lastly, happy World EV Day to everyone, and I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day and week. And then we'll just go over to the last of words from the panel and special guests. Who wants to start? Oh, John got there first.
And can I just not actually say anything, but make a request of Edmund? Edmund, would you do me a huge favour and just say, join us at the EV Cafe?
Join us at the EV Cafe.
Oh my Lord! I'm happy.
I've got a second request from you, Edmund. I need you to do that, record it, and put it on the EV Cafe group if that's all right.
I'll do that. No worries. No worries. Only a small fee for the voiceovers.
I was going to say, you're missing a trick, guys.
I guess my message, though, seriously, it is there's loads of great stuff going on all over the place. EV Cafe, you're brilliant pulling it all together. But let's go out there. Let's be positive. Let's get rid of the naysayers. Let's throw out the myths and let's get this thing trucking.
You know that thing I said about us not needing electrification minister?
Yeah, there you go. How great
I'll take the job.
Now you're sorry.
I'll have it.
There you go.
That's
Particularly
what I'm talking about.
Yeah, particularly if they pay as highly as they pay the head of Highways England.
Indeed. Yes, fair point.
Any other last words from anybody?
Yeah, I don't know how many it is. Collaboration and action.
Yes.
Brilliant. Paul, you've always got a last word. You've always got to have the last word.
I'm thrilled that we could bring this together to really celebrate World EV Day. It's great that we've been elevated as the EV Cafe to a partner with World EV Day, and I think the wonderful speakers that we've had on today and the reach that we have just is a fantastic testimony to getting that message out all over the world, which is really brilliant. World EV Day, yes.
Over to you, Sam.
Thank you to everybody who's contributed today. You're all pioneers. You're all doing something. We're all trying to contribute to this market, and and I'm proud to be part of a group that is like this. And same goes to everyone that's listening. And the only other thing is, please reshare. We do a lot of effort to try and showcase and put out messages on LinkedIn about the EV Cafe because we want to keep enjoying this journey and educating people. So everyone that's listening, please reshare and share it with people who are doubting Thomases as well as the evangelists. Let's get this message out there so we can try and educate as many people time and time again until we've got mass adoption completed.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Sam. Melanie or Matt, have you got any last words that you'd like to say before we sign off?
Just to say thanks so much for having me on again. I've really enjoyed it. Any EV drivers out there who want to share their picture of them charging on World EV Day, we're going to then reshare those on the ZapMap Twitter feed. Just get the sort of buzz going. It's fantastic having World EV Day. And I guess one other thing, that the point that came up a lot about ZapPay, we've had loads of support on it. People say, are we going to be able to get all the networks on board? Well, anyone out there who's able to put any kind of, to say how much they would like to see interoperability, not just with ZapPay, but generally put a bit of pressure on the networks, that's that's already always welcome. But thanks everyone, and it's brilliant to have such a good day and to be in the company of all of you guys.
Melanie, thank
Excellent.
you.
And last but not least, Matt.
I think well said from Melanie. Really super excited to be part of this today, and just involve us as much as you want to, because you said collaboration and action. It is a group effort, and it's down to everybody to make this happen.
Fantastic words from all. Thank you very much. So big thanks to all the special guests, the EV Cafe crew, and all that's attended today. It's a goodbye from me and a goodbye to Julian's mum.
Nice, guys.
Bye.